This is the Sirui 85mm f1.4 for the Sony E-mount. It's got the buttons, it's got the switches, it's got the right looks, and produces great images. And best of all, you can get it for $499 US and still get G Master-like quality. Kind of. But before you decide to add this to your cart, let's take a closer look at this lens to see how good it really is and what we are giving up for such an amazing cost. Sirui is not sponsoring this video, but they did send this out to me and they let me keep this lens. Nonetheless, like any other lens on this channel, I still took this out for taking photos and videos at my church, as well as doing portraits as well. Inside the box, we get a little lens bag, lens hood, cap, and that's it. A little highlight on the lens hood. Unlike other lens hoods that I've had, this is the only one, aside from maybe the Sony 70-200, that this actually has like a little rubber ring that makes it much easier for you to thread and unthread, loosen, and take this off. But if you're wondering how this actually feels in the hands, this weighs 405 grams. It's solid, it's metal, it's beefy, yet compact. It almost looks like a slightly bigger Sony 85mm f1.8. If you've used a Sony 85mm f1.8, this looks slightly bigger than that. I've never tried the Sigma version of the f1.4, but that appears to weigh 3 times as much at 1135 grams. If you're thinking of saving some money to get a Sony G Master Mark I, well, that weighs 465 grams more than this one. So if you're looking for an 85mm and you're looking to save some money and you're back, the Sirui is a good middle lens to have. Alright, let's look at some smaller details. The filter thread size is 67mm. If you want to go ahead and step that up to, let's say, 82mm. Or if you're using something like the Tamron zoom lenses, this will be perfect because it's the same filter thread size as those zoom lenses, which we appreciate those brands for, so we don't have to always buy 82mm if that's the world that you live in. So looking on the outside of this lens, what are the more premium experiences of it? Well, unlike cheaper lenses, this does have an AF and MF switch. It's got an AFL switch, or at least toggle button. It's got the click and declick, which is going to be great for us video shooters who want a smoother experience when it comes to changing our aperture. Or photographers could like that too if you're interested. I just set mine to A most of the time. If you're a beginner looking for a budget-friendly lens, just know that this is a prime lens and there's no zooming involved. Although if you're using like a Sony full frame camera, fortunately you're going to get the benefit of using Super 35 mode where you can punch in a little bit more, but you will not be zooming in with this. Looking closely on the back end, you will notice that there is a USB-C port for any upgrades that Sirui may have. Generally, 85mm is more of a telephoto focal length, and this will be great for subjects that are far away and you get a more narrow point of view, or at least a narrower frame, and have that ability to take away all the distractions in your frame or in your environment. The closest you're going to be able to get between you and your subject is going to be 0.85 meters or 2.79 feet. So you won't necessarily be using this for macro photography, but you will be able to go ahead and separate your subject from their background quite easily, especially when you let them sit around that 3 feet mark, and you'll just be able to get that nice bokeh. Whether you shoot at an aperture of f1.4 or all the way to f4 or 5.6, you're still going to be able to get some nice bokeh and be able to let your subject sit at that 3 foot. Stumbling over my words here. Yeah, sit at that 3 foot mark. But naturally, if you like shooting at f1.4, you definitely are going to be able to blur that background, and it's just so creamy. When using this at my church, I have been sitting around like f2.8, or I've been staying away from f1.4 just because I want to be able to get a little bit more detail and context of the environment. But here's a little comparison between the f1.4 and f2.8, and you'll be able to notice that in one of these images that once I shoot at f1.4, you'll notice that the exit sign in the background is unnoticeable. But when we start stopping down to f2.8 or even higher than f1.4 in general, you will be able to kind of make out those letters of the exit sign. In general, I like using telephoto lenses, and especially something small as this and not necessarily something large like a 70-200, where I'm able to go ahead and isolate the participants and speakers in the pulpit or the stage. I'm usually sitting in the first view to get these shots, and I love that I'm able to punch in even a little more using the Super 35mm mode and get 127mm when punching in. I'm losing a little bit of resolution, but it's still a good looking image. In terms of video, if I wanted to get a more zoom-like experience, yes, I could punch in, or I could use the clear image zoom. Or just simply invest in a 70-200, which hopefully is something in the near future, but for the meantime, this is a good solid choice for anybody looking to get their first telephoto lens and not have to buy a 70-200. Sometimes just gotta save, just gotta save, just gotta save. And since I'm using this in the church, I have noticed that this is quite the silent lens. It's smooth, it's not hunting, and no one else around me has complained about loud focusing motors. If you've never shot 85mm or shot with an f1.4 lens before, you're still gonna have those qualities of getting great bokeh at f1.4. The aperture is gonna serve you well in the low light situations and have more shallow depth of field. For the price, I would say that if you've never owned an f1.4 lens before, this would be a great lens to start out with, especially for the price. And whether you're shooting photo or video or just want more manual control, you'll also want to know that this does have a consistent focus rack. Of course, with fly-by-wire focus mechanisms, you're always going to kind of miss the mark a little bit in terms of focusing from an A point to a B point, back and forth. In terms of focus breathing, you will notice a little bit of that, but for me, that's okay. This is a little sample that I have of my One Piece figure here. I don't know about you, but I caught up with the series this past year and so good, so good. Most of the time I'm using this in autofocus instead of manual focus, and I haven't had any issues with this lens just sticking on my subject, whether it's photo or for video, and I'm able to just track the face most of the time pretty well. No issues, no hunting. Overall, I just like having this minimal setup and still getting that nice telephoto punch. I mean, look at what my setup was for the tennis court. I was thinking to bring a big old tripod to the court, but I decided that I wanted to minimize a stray target for my shots to hit and knock over my camera setup. So I decided with this setup with a foul cam, super clamp, and arm, and I love that. It held up pretty well, but at the end of the day, what does the image quality look like? Overall, this lens is a great value, and one of the things that I forgot to mention in the beginning was that this does have a rubber gasket towards the back, which is usually something that you'll find in a more premium lens for weather sealing. So I'm not telling you to go out and shoot in the rain, but you are a little bit covered here with some rubber to protect from the elements. So that's a good thing to have. Overall, I wouldn't really know the difference between this and a G Master lens, although I know most G Master lenses are quite sharp, you know, wide open, and you'll definitely have a fun time with those. Probably for half the weight, you're already getting quite the package. The regular price for this goes for $599, which is significantly less than the 85mm f1.4 for Sony. The G Master starts at $1,298 US for the Mark 1. The Mark 2 is now going for $1,798 US, and the Sigma is around $949 US, and the Sony 85mm f1.8 original price is $598, or you can get it for less when on sale. Now let's say you're watching this video even after the holiday sale. Is it still worth it to get this lens full price? Well, I would say yes, because you're still getting much more value than the Sony 85mm f1.8, and it's a great entry price for a lens that still provides a premium experience, whether you're a beginner or intermediate portrait photographer or videographer and you're just getting into things. You're looking for a fast lens for a more affordable price, which is less than $1,000. For videographers, you are getting that declickable aperture ring if that's something you're into. You're able to get a little bit longer reach because this is a full frame lens with that Super 35 mode. But if you don't end up getting this lens, it's good to know that in the Sony ecosystem, you still have plenty of other options to choose from. Sirui 85mm may not be the sharpest lens at f1.4, but it'll give you more light when you need it and give you the premium hands-on experience without having to break the bank. After my experience with this lens, I just want a 50mm version of this. But until then, we got these other great lenses over here for the Sony E-mount.